And I'm back from the Shadow Realm. Don't ask where I've been, I won't answer.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine. But you're not really fine. But you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But I'm back, and I'm back to, let's say, Fry the Fryer.
Boo! You suck!
But seriously, today we have a friar who's going to try to tell us some things that he expects us to believe, and I'm going to ask him why, and he's not going to answer the question. Let's get into it.
The idea of there being a powerful cosmic being.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
The video just started, and I already
Got a problem with that.
I don't understand what ideas are being discussed from the jump. What is a cosmic being? What's the difference between a cosmic being and a regular being? What do you mean by power? How do you quantify the power of a regular being, much less the power of a cosmic being? I'm just
asking some questions.
Responsible for creating and controlling the universe used to be commonplace.
Firstly, you say used to be commonplace, heavy air quotes, as if to imply that it's not currently commonplace, which I'm not convinced of. And secondly,
It's weird.
exactly, did it used to be commonplace but is no longer currently commonplace?
For the vast majority of human history, those who denied supernatural forces would have been in the extreme minority, and so articulating why we believe in one was often unnecessary. That is not the case today.
So you're saying that it's not the case today that those who deny supernatural forces are in the extreme minority?
Okay, I believe you.
As atheism continues to grow, people of faith are all of a sudden having to defend their own existence.
What the hell are you on about?
Defend their own existence from what exactly?
Is this not just superstition? Has science not debunked the naivete of our ancient forefathers?
I am of the opinion that science can't debunk something that doesn't have a clear definition. That's why science can't debunk the claim that it is.
Untrained in this sort of debate, some Christians attempt to frame their answer in the atheist language.
And bitch!
The implication that I'm getting from your usage of untrained in this debate is that framing an idea or an argument in the atheist language is somehow bad, despite the fact that communicating to someone in a way they understand, like their native language, is the most effective way to convey ideas to them.
They try to prove mathematically, prove empirically, that there must be a God, using logic.
Oh dear God, they're using logic. I hope they got Seth's permission first, or this is going to turn out worse than that one time God sent his son down to earth on a suicide mission. Or that other time where he bet Satan that he could torture a poor man for no good reason.
Pointing to the unexplained, presenting what they believe to be forensic evidence of God's past deeds, they engage the question as if it were a question of science.
As opposed to a question of what exactly?
But this is simply not the case.
Okay, I believe you.
Our belief in God is not a matter of fact, not a result of verifiable sense data.
If your belief in God is not a matter of fact, then what is it a matter of?
It's the result of faith.
Faith meaning what exactly? Am I just going to have to go through this video and constantly ask, what do you mean by saying things? Because that's going to get really boring and really repetitive if it already hasn't gotten really boring and really repetitive.
To look for fingerprints or mathematical proofs is to look for God in the wrong places.
Why can't God appear in those places? If God can appear in those places, why is it wrong to look for God in places where he could appear?
It's an attempt to replace faith with certainty.
Ignoring the fact that you still haven't defined faith, what's wrong with attempting to replace faith with certainty?
The only fact of the matter, what must guide our inquiry into this question, is that we don't know for certain that there's a God. We don't. At least not in the same way that we know that 2 + 2 is 4, or that gravity is a force that brings bodies of matter together. If God were an observable fact, then there would be no choice to believe, no room for free love.
Okay, first of all, God is not an observable fact. Good to know. Second of all, was God an observable fact when he was Jesus, or does that still apply to that too? Because now I'm confused. Third of all, love, as far as I understand it, is an emotion. brought about without our conscious control. One cannot merely choose to feel happy or choose to feel love towards someone. That being said, there is no freedom to love in the first place. And if you think that there is a freedom to love, demonstrate it. Stop loving God right now, because I'm fairly confident that you couldn't do it just through your conscious choice alone. You would need something outside of your control to influence you in such a ways that you would then stop loving God.
No faith. God is not a fact. God is not a fact.
God is not a fact.
I said, what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait, first of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
How do you believe in something that you also believe is not a fact?
How do you do that?
If you don't believe God is a fact, then in what sense are you a theist at all?
But that doesn't mean that God can't be known to those who have been given the gift of faith.
Putting aside the assertion that faith is apparently a gift that can be given by redacted, how can you know something you believe is not a fact?
How, Sway? How? I thought you had the answers. I thought you was good.
I got the answer.
I know it's not exactly my place, but maybe you should consider using logic. I hear Eseth loans him out to people in need, and you definitely seem like you're in need.
For those who believe, evidence abounds.
So you're telling me if I believe something, I'll find more evidence for that thing. And that's not confirmation bias at all.
For one, we're privileged with innumerable accounts of those who have witnessed God with their own eyes.
Didn't you just say that God wasn't an observable fact, and now you're listing people who saw God as an observable fact? Do you actually watch the videos you publish, or no? Furthermore, if they can witness God as an observable fact, why can't we? Why do we need witness accounts? Why can't we just witness God in the same way that they did?
With ease. With the greatest of ease.
That's right.
Our scriptures testify that for more than a millennia, God spoke to his people through angels, powerful plagues, and direct commands.
So what you're saying is,
Or the Bible tells me so.
come at me, Paulogia.
Witnesses saw the living and true God of Jesus Christ heal the sick and raise the dead. A fraud does not have the immediate success that he had. A fake does not transform an entire region of the world overnight.
Never before have I had to unpack so much from so little that was said. Okay, what immediate success did Jesus have? How do you know a fraud couldn't attain whatever success he attained in a similar time frame? What about the success of other people in other religions? Unless you believe in those religions too, wouldn't you say that Joseph Smith is a fraud who gained immediate success, whatever that means? Might seem at this point like I'm deliberately being facetious and playing dumb, but the truth is, I could assume a vast list of people of who exactly the Bible is referring to, but unless he clarifies exactly who he's talking about, I can't hold his feet to the fire. If I assume that he's talking about one of the Gospels or one of the Apostles or Paul or whomever, he can easily dodge the criticism by saying that's not who I'm talking about, and then this conversation will never end because I can't hold his feet to the fire. He needs to say who exactly he's talking about so that I can hold him accountable.
People saw with their eyes and professed with their lips a God who worked wonders, who spoke clearly, who heard their prayers and answered them. For many, their testimony is enough to believe.
What?
The testimony of anyone else from any other religion isn't enough of a reason for you to believe, so why is the alleged testimony from people in the Bible enough to believe? The testimony from people in the Quran isn't enough for you to be a Muslim. The testimony of people in Hinduism isn't enough for you to be a Hindu, yet for some strange reason the testimony of the people in the Bible is enough for you to believe in the Bible, and also not those other books, for some reason.
For the more philosophically minded, we find reason to believe because we cannot imagine an infinite regress of time and space.
Come again?
Let me get this straight.
Your reason to believe in a
Powerful cosmic being,
whatever that is that you cannot imagine an infinite regress of time and space. Your personal inability to imagine one alternative to the origin of the universe is enough to believe in God specifically.
Excuse me?
Would this then mean that my personal inability to imagine an infinitely regressing God is enough to believe that God does not exist? Why can't someone just contact Eseth and use that logic to arrive at a completely opposite conclusion to the one that you arrived at?
Where did it all come from?
Why do you think it all came from anywhere? That's the functioning equivalent of asking, how long was it before time started? It's a contradiction in terms as well as a baseless assumption as far as I can tell.
We can say that humans adapted from primitive monkeys that evolved from primitive mammals that go back to some primitive goo that ultimately go back to the Big Bang.
That sounds like a completely fair, clear, concise, and accurate summary of evolutionary biology, abiogenesis, and Big Bang cosmology.
But what caused the Big Bang?
Why do you think the Big Bang had a cause?
Where did these atoms come from?
Why do you think these atoms came from anywhere? As far as I can tell, you don't think God came from anywhere, so why do these atoms have to come from somewhere?
Who created them?
Is it January 29th already? 'Cause that fucking leap!
But seriously, why do you think they were created, and
On top of that,
why do you think it was a who that created them?
To go back and back and back to infinity just doesn't make sense.
Why? Why?
Does it make sense for God to go back and back and back it to infinity and beyond? If so, how? And why wouldn't that apply to the universe?
There must be a first cause, a first mover of history.
okay, but
And follow me on this one.
If the first cause doesn't require a cause, or the first mover doesn't require a move, or didn't come from anywhere, why would we assume that the universe needed to come from anywhere, or that the universe needed to be caused? You haven't demonstrated a problem with infinite temporal regress except that you personally can't imagine it, which is not a valid criticism of any idea. I personally couldn't imagine working with one of my favorite YouTubers, but that doesn't change the fact that it happened now, did it?
It is outside of time and space.
Why does it have to be outside of time and space? What does it even mean for something to be outside of time and space? What's the difference between something that is outside of time and space versus something that just doesn't exist?
just asking some questions.
There must be a reason why there is something rather than nothing.
The 25th letter of the alphabet.
For many, the illogical nature of purely material existence is enough to believe.
You haven't defined or even explained what the illogical nature of purely material existence even is. You've just said that it's a thing and that it's illogical, and because of that, people believe in God. I can jolly well say that Christianity is an illogical hodgepodge of meaningless language that's indistinct from America. But merely saying that doesn't convey how it's illogical or what is illogical about it. Saying something without defining or explaining your terms is the same as not saying anything at all.
Others begin with the human experience, the intimate knowledge of self. Within our being is a desire to know. Our nature is disposed to discovery, self-reflection, and identity, inexhaustible desires within us that reach forward infinitely. With everything we learn, everything we answer, we are left with 10 more questions, leaving us to conclude that we are not beings that will ever be satisfied with something, but rather seeking out infinity itself, God. It is against the backdrop of this infinite horizon that we discover who we are and where we are going. For many, the boundless desire within us is enough to believe.
The alleged boundless desire to know stuff is enough to believe that there is a
Powerful cosmic being responsible for creating and controlling the universe,
but also, quote,
is not a fact. But of course, there is a final way to know. It is the purest and most simple of explanations. There are some of us that have personally encountered God.
Because you still have yet to define what a God is, I don't know what it means to personally encounter a God, so I cannot validate or invalidate the experience. You've basically said,
America! But he didn't say anything!
Maybe we've witnessed a miracle or heard his voice speak within us.
I'm guessing we're just saying words without defining or explaining them, like miraculous. In that case,
I am a 400-foot tall purple platypus bear with pink horns and silver wings.
But he didn't say anything!
but that annoying detail aside, what would seeing something miraculous have to do with God? It's almost as if these definitions are purposefully vague, and it's almost impossible to see a connection between the two concepts when the concepts aren't clearly defined.
Maybe we felt undeniable comfort in the midst of tragedy.
What does feeling anything, much less an undeniable feeling of comfort, in the midst of tragedy have to do with God? It's almost as if
had a life-changing experience with no other explanation than God's loving hand.
Ah, yes, the good old I can't think of anything better, therefore God. Truly.
Tale as old as time.
All jokes aside, what is it with you and relying on your ignorance as a method of coming to certain beliefs? If I had a life-changing event with no other explanation than I am God myself, would that then be good enough to believe that I am God myself?
This is why I believe. Truly.
Okay, but
Why?
why do you believe that? We still haven't answered the question. Putting aside the fact that you still haven't explained what a powerful cosmic being is, you've already said God isn't a fact. So I don't know what you even believe at this point, much less why.
Trusting in others, seeking God in philosophy and anthropology makes sense and give greater meaning to what I know. When it comes down to it, the reason I believe is because I have felt his healing presence in my life. In a time of great distress, I was given comfort and released of my pain.
Therefore God.
In moments of immense isolation, I have felt a loving embrace.
Therefore God.
I haven't seen a supernatural being in my midst and haven't had any ecstatic experiences, but I have encountered God on more than a few occasions.
Okay, I believe you.
It's the sort of knowing on the level of love, a feeling that burns so powerfully and clearly that nothing could ever call it into question, and yet there's no data to convince another of its existence. That feeling, that experience, however nebulous and unverifiable for you, is enough for me.
Why are you convinced by, as you would say, nebulous and unverifiable experiences when you remain unconvinced by the unverifiable and nebulous experiences of an atheist skeleton?
That is what inspires me to believe, what gives me life, that overcomes the many feelings of doubt in my life. Maybe that's sufficient for you, maybe it's not.
It's like you can't hear me yelling at you from another plane of existence. Why is that sufficient for you?
Maybe if put on the spot, if asked to give your own testimony, to proclaim the kerygma yourself, you would give another answer. I tell you again, this is not a hypothetical question. People will ask you. They will want to know. Why, in a world of science, in the age of enlightenment, when so many people are choosing to no longer believe, do you say that there is a God?
God is not a fact.
If you want to be a disciple of Christ, if you want to call yourself a Christian, you must be able to answer this question clearly and convincingly.
Clearly and convincingly, but not necessarily accurately, because who cares about accuracy, am I right? All jokes aside, it's good to be back in the saddle. I'll be regularly streaming again on Sundays, and hopefully I can get back to making consistent content before the rest of you heathens die and end up in hell with me. Now, if you don't mind, I really should go let Ezeth know that people are using Logic without her permission, but somehow
Logic always had the tendency to fanboy around. No one gives my lizard boy cutie pet names. At least not without my approval.
I think she already knows. Until next time, remember I appreciate you all a lot.